Hi movie lover friends, how are you? I hope you're doing well. Today, I'm going to explain. In a strange kingdom, where every few days, virgin maidens had to be sacrificed to appease a dragon. If not, the dragon would come and kill everyone. Each time, ordinary girls were offered. But this time, the dragon took the kingdom's princess. What does the dragon do with these girls? Will the princess be able to return alive? Stay tuned for the whole story, because a fantastic twist awaits you. Let's dive right into the tale, without further delay. But first, friends, a small request. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and leave a like. Your love and encouragement inspire us to create more videos. At the beginning of the story, we see a small kingdom where dark magic is used to perform sacrifices. These sacrifices were made to protect the kingdom's people from the dragons. It was a time when dragons frequently attacked various kingdoms. To save themselves, the people would sacrifice virgin maidens to the dragons. They would sing a special song to summon the dragon, and the dragon would come and take the girls away. This was the only way to prevent the dragons from attacking. But the dragons were so powerful that humans could never defeat them. Thus, they had no choice but to continue the sacrifices, even against their will. However, no one knew where the dragons lived. They resided on a magical island, invisible to ordinary people. Legend had it that if someone truly loved one of the sacrificed maidens, only that person could see the island. We hear a story where a girl is taken by a dragon right in front of her lover. Unable to bear it, he sets out to find the dragons and eventually reaches the island. But upon arrival, he learns that the dragons had already killed his beloved. Enraged, the young man kills the dragon, freeing the kingdom from its terror. The people no longer needed to make any sacrifices. Many years pass. Now, the man who killed the dragon is old. He has a grandson named Igor. The king of the kingdom tells his granddaughter, "I have found a boy for you to marry." And that boy is none other than Igor. Everyone in the kingdom is overjoyed, thinking that Igor might be as brave as his grandfather. Soon, the day of the wedding arrives. There was a peculiar tradition in this kingdom. During weddings, a raft would be built in the middle of a river, and the bride would be set adrift on it. Then, she would be pulled from one bank to the other with a large rope. But during this wedding, the villagers suddenly began singing their traditional song, the one they used to summon the dragon. For many years, there had been no sign of dragons, so everyone thought they were extinct. Moments later, the atmosphere began to change dramatically. Everyone present saw a massive dragon appear in the sky. In an instant, the dragon snatched the princess and flew away. Igor tried to stop it, but he wasn't as brave as his grandfather. The dragon took the princess to the island where they lived. She was imprisoned in a cave. While captive, she noticed a boy in another cave. Perhaps he had also been taken by the dragon. The princess approached the boy and asked his name, but he didn't respond. She thought maybe he had been taken at a very young age and didn't know his name. So she named him Armin. As they were talking, the terrifying dragon appeared at the cave's entrance. The princess was terrified. Along with the dragon, there were some strange creatures. But after the dragon left, the princess noticed that the boy was gone. She thought the dragon must have taken him. Furious, the princess picked up a rock and began breaking the wall between them to save the boy. As she broke through the wall, she saw another dragon on the other side. Terrified, she tried to escape, but the entire island was actually the skull of a massive dragon, and the princess was standing high above the ground. Just then, Armin appeared before her, but this time, the strange creature she had seen with the dragon was also with him. The creature was about to attack the princess. This made the princess suspicious. She thought to herself, this boy must be connected to the dragon somehow. She tried to move away from Armin, but suddenly, her foot slipped, and she fell. Armin immediately jumped to save her, but as they fell, Armin transformed into a dragon. In his dragon form, Armin caught the princess, but they both lost control and crashed to the ground. Upon landing, Armin turned back into a human and fainted. The princess, terrified, picked up a large rock and was about to kill Armin. But then, she remembered, Armin had saved her from death. Perhaps he was a good dragon. So, the princess pulled Armin out of the water. After a while, Armin regained consciousness, and he was about to transform into a dragon again. But somehow, he managed to control himself and stayed in his human form. He was very weak, which is why he kept fainting. The next morning, the princess went to the edge of the island and screamed loudly for help. But there was no one around to hear her cries. Reluctantly, she returned and applied medicine to Armin's wounds. That night, the princess dreamed that Igor had come to rescue her, but it was just a dream. When she woke up, she saw Armin standing in front of her. Armin said, "You have nothing to fear. As long as you're with me here, you'll be safe." From then on, we see Armin and the princess spending good times together. A strong friendship began to form between them, but Armin was always afraid because, even though the princess trusted him, He couldn't fully control the dragon within him. He feared that if the dragon ever emerged, it might harm the princess. One day, Armin opened up to the princess and shared his story. That's when we learned about Armin's childhood. Armin said, "My father was a dragon, and he always wanted me to become one too. But I preferred living like an ordinary human. My father tried to convince me to embrace being a dragon, but I refused and ran away. After that, some people came to our island and killed my father. Since then, I've hated humans." In fact, the man who killed Armin's father was Igor's grandfather. As Armin grew older, he eventually transformed into a dragon. But after becoming a dragon, he realized that dragons weren't entirely good. They kidnapped girls from human kingdoms and burned them with fire. Dragon children were born from this. Armin was half dragon and half human. Armin then told the princess, "I'm not selfish like the other dragons. I try to control myself. But on the day of your wedding, when the villagers sang that song, I couldn't hold back. That's why I took you and brought you here. But I don't want to harm you." Then Armin asked the princess, "Do you think someone will come to rescue you?" The princess replied, "Yes, my husband will definitely come for me. He's very brave." Hearing this, Armin's expression darkened because he had secretly started to develop feelings for the princess. On the other hand, the princess hadn't tried to escape because she thought Armin was a kind-hearted person. However, after a few days, the princess realized that Armin liked her, but she didn't want to stay trapped on the island. So, she secretly planned to maintain a good relationship with Armin on the surface, so he would always keep an eye on her. This way, she could escape at the first opportunity. But as time passed, the princess also began to develop feelings for Armin. One night, while sleeping, the princess had a terrifying nightmare. She dreamed that Armin had turned into a ferocious, savage dragon. He even wanted to burn her alive with fire. Frightened, she woke up. Armin immediately came to her side, but the princess didn't tell him about the dream. The princess started planning again. She would escape as soon as she got the chance. One day, when Armin was coming to see the princess, bringing her flowers and about to confess his feelings, he noticed some tools for building a raft. Armin realized that the princess wanted to leave. But even after all this time, the princess still didn't trust him. This made him furious. The dragon inside him began to stir, trying to break free. Armin went to the princess and said, "If you want to leave, then go. I've been controlling the dragon inside me just for you. But I don't think it's necessary anymore. So leave this island now." Hearing Armin's words, the princess realized how wrong she had been. She repeatedly apologized to Armin, but Armin kept saying, "It's too late now. So it's better for you to leave. I might not be able to control the dragon inside me anymore." The princess had no other choice, so she quickly left the island. Meanwhile, Igor and his brother had been searching for the island for many days, but they couldn't find it in the middle of the ocean. As I mentioned earlier, only those with true love in their hearts could find it. But the truth was, Igor didn't truly love the princess. He only wanted to marry her for her wealth. Igor was actually very cowardly. He told his older brother, "I'm too scared. Let's just leave. What's the point of risking our lives for the princess?" Hearing this, his older brother became furious and said, "Why are you so cowardly? You don't even care whether your future wife is alive or dead." As they were about to turn back, they suddenly saw the princess approaching from a distance. As soon as she came closer, Igor's behavior changed. He said, "We've been searching for you for days in the middle of the sea. Come on, let's go and kill that dragon." But the princess replied, "There's no need. I've already killed the dragon." Back at the palace, preparations for Igor and the princess's wedding began again. Everyone in the kingdom was overjoyed that the princess had finally returned. Once again, following the wedding tradition, the princess was laid on a boat and set adrift. But as the ritual was being performed, tears suddenly welled up in the princess's eyes. The truth was, she had fallen in love with Armin during those days. Meanwhile, we see that Armin's heart was broken. He decided to end his life. Armin jumped off a cliff. At that very moment, the princess stood up in her boat. She didn't want to marry Igor, but Igor quickly started pulling the rope to bring her closer. The princess then untied the rope from the boat and stood on it, singing the song they used to summon the dragon. For a while, nothing happened. But then, suddenly, the atmosphere began to change. Armin, with his massive wings, appeared and took the princess away. As the dragon was carrying the princess, Igor grabbed a spear and tried to chase after them. But his brother stopped him and said, "You don't deserve the princess. Let the one who deserves her take her." Within moments, the dragon brought the princess back to the island. This time, the dragon was about to burn the princess with fire, as that was how they reproduced. But just as he was about to breathe fire, the princess kissed him and said, "I love you so much. Even if you burn me to death, I have no regrets." The dragon inside Armin had never experienced love before. Suddenly, overwhelmed by the princess's love, his heart changed. He rested his head in the princess's lap. A few years later, we see that the princess and Armin have a beautiful child. They are now living a comfortable life together. And so, they began living happily on the island. This beautiful ending brings the story to a close. How did you like the story? Let me know in the comments.